Hey Emma, what's our bad work story for today?
Hi, Karina. Well, a client was sharing a story about a recruitment situation. The candidate looked good on paper and the interview was okay, but they felt the references were veiled. And by that, I mean that they were guarded and measured, too neutral. So they decided to say no and wait for a better solution. But their HR partner convinced them to take the candidate on. And a year later, guess what? The person is
Hmm.
leaving the business.
Oh dear, oh dear. So, apart from the obvious, I'm going to ask it anyway. So, what's the bad work story in this?
Well, I think the bad work story is that they didn't follow through on their gut feel or intuition about this candidate, and it ended
Mm,
up costing a lot of resources. I mean, we all know how expensive it is to recruit.
mhm.
It's so high, the onboarding costs, the cost of this leader and their team, and, the candidate in this situation, a nice person, but not a good fit.
Mm. Yeah, totally. And I think there is another bad work story in here, which is, what's the relationship between leaders and HR, and the pattern of trust, understanding, and possibly competing strategies, strategic
Indeed.
objectives potentially. But yeah,
Oh,
could
well,
be.
let's explore both of them.
Absolutely. Let's go. So, how do we make this good?
Well, from the leader's perspective, their learning was to trust in their gut and stay strong around what they, knew deep inside to be the
Hmm.
right decision. It's a classic head over other intelligence that we have as humans. And we all have examples of times when our head has said one thing to us and our gut another. And, how that turned out. I mean, for me, it was saying no to a job that I didn't feel was right for me, and very soon after landing my dream job. So, this can work in many areas of our lives.
For sure, for sure. And what would you say to people who say that you shouldn't trust your gut, due to unconscious bias?
Well, I'd say that's wrong. You should. We can instantly add complex and subtle information to determine what's essential. We have this capability. It's much faster than simple brain processing and what looks right on paper. So it's important to listen. And the other thing is to share what's coming up. So we often
Mm.
ignore it and, pay for the consequences on that.
Yeah, I think, back on the unconscious bias piece, my perspective on that is I think there is something in there, in terms of, looking at, and most of the research has been done on, like white older men in situations, and if that is your background and your interests, where does your intuition or gut take you, particularly around, recruitment decisions. But I think what we're really talking about here is the and, right? We're not saying, well, if I'm
No.
here, we're not saying, hey, throw out all the really good analytics and just trust your gut. We're not saying that. We're saying add it in, right? So from what I got with the story that you've shared, the leader had done all of that stuff, right?
Yes.
Had done all the analysis. HR was part of that process, so there was loads of good systems in there, we're assuming, but there
Yeah.
was something at the end of it
Mm.
that leader was going, hang on a minute, this is not adding up. I can't
Yeah.
tell you why or what to put my finger on it. Like you said, you don't know what it really is.
Mm.
But then that's a sign, that's kind of a piece of incoming information that we can use to go, okay, so this is another piece of intelligence coming in, right?
Absolutely.
How to
Absolutely.
use that. Yeah. So we're saying it's an and, yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Because as you say, the head looked, everything from the head perspective looked good, but the gut was telling something else. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the piece here is, what was the communication then? So like, there's stuff that the leader could do differently.
Absolutely.
And from what it's like something happened to them to not trust themselves. Do you know what happened? Like they could have gone, hey, this is super important, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Did they cave? Like what happened?
I think they felt unsure. Like I think there was, definitely that, and took advice from HR. I mean, I think the learning is to trust and be strong, and certainly speaking up. The reality is that, it's hard to find people, and the recruitment market was tight
Mm,
and still
mm,
is.
mm.
It's almost like FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. A warm body is better than nobody. When you've
Mm.
got work to be done, and you're under
Yeah.
pressure to get people in. So, yeah, I think that's really what happened.
Mm. Yeah, and it'd be really interesting to have that debrief with HR, like what they could learn together in terms of their relationship, and like looking at like what naming those tensions up front. Like,
Mm,
hey, I know you find this frustrating because I'm finding a pause here, or like, how do we resolve the fact that I'm not 100% there yet, and we do have these real deadlines. We have issues that we need to solve, and you know, um, needing new resources and workloads and engagement. I mean, everything in that system is interconnected. So I appreciate from the HR perspective that there are real pressures.
mm.
And when a leader kind of comes along and goes, "Oh, my intuition's telling me it's not right," they might go, "Friggin' heck, you know, get over yourself. We need someone in that position now," kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a really good opportunity there to get those issues on the table and use it as a learning, experience for both parties. And
Mm.
and I'll be curious to know if they have debriefed, and if they have, that would be amazing. And if you are an HR person out there listening to this and you do debrief this stuff, love to hear from you. And
Mm.
unfortunately, my experience with HR would lead me to say does not happen often.
Mm.
Well, anything to add to that, Anne?
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend debriefing on how this played out. And this is about building trust in each other and building the
Mm,
relationship. When we're talking about business partners from HR and in the business, then this is really important relationship building stuff. Understanding a little bit more about each other, but also the super sense that we all have.
mm,
This is team stuff. There's extra information coming from others that we should pick up on. And, I know that even a completely different non-recruiting situation, I've been in meetings, where decisions are being made. And sometimes something seems off, and I've voiced my concerns, saying that I wasn't sure what it was, and
mm.
had someone else in the team speak up and add the information that I was sensing but couldn't put my finger on. So, I think together we're always stronger, and
For
yeah,
sure.
that listening in is important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And maybe this is an opportunity for HR to open up around, as you said, those different intelligences that we have, and to really honor, how can this person, honor a leader's intuition?
Mm.
Like a question here: is this leader a seasoned
Oh,
professional?
absolutely. So much
Well,
experience. So much
so
experience.
so there
Yeah.
you go. So
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking. This is intuition built over time,
Yeah.
which I think is a really interesting
It's not
piece around
something weird. It's
intuition.
not something weird and wacky.
No, I mean, this is, a seasoned professional who's
Yeah.
probably hired a lot of people,
Yes.
seen lots of success markers, failure markers, and wanting to, like, they're honed, they're on it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
actually, I mean, and that raises another, like, that even kind of, for me, amplifies this whole conversation
Absolutely.
of and if the decision is with the leader, right, that who has the D in this, and
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
is the leader there, then how can, if you're the HR person, how can you honor that? How can you actually say, hey, tell me more? Like, what is this telling you? What is your intuition saying is our next step? How do we slow this down? What other, as you said, Em, more information, like,
Mm.
do we need to go back into the references? Do we need to
Mm.
kind of highlight any behavioral stuff? Is this a skill-based thing? Is this a trust thing? Is it a cultural thing? Is it
Might be
performance
just a
under
fit.
pressure
Yep.
thing?
Yep.
Which is all fit, you
Yep.
know. So how do we do that? And I think that skill of being able to slow down and inquire in the face of competing tensions,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, could have been a way out here.
Totally. And I mean, I think also we've all got to consider the resources put into recruiting. Again, we talked about it a bit earlier, the cost, but also the energy, that whole, I actually just need someone in the position, and and yet when we look a year down the track, so much has gone into, getting that person onboarding. So, and we're back to square one. So, look, it might take another month or 3, who knows? But,
Yep.
it's definitely worth considering, slowing the process down, as you said,
Yeah,
and getting
totally.
it right.
Yeah, and are there other ways to adjust our recruitment process, and our onboarding process? And,
Yes.
it's kind of, I can understand that fear, of like, it's kind of like an all or nothing, isn't it? Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
is this person the right person? And then we put them into the system. Are there other ways of doing that, that
Yeah.
where it takes away the pressure and performance pressure and gives the space and like the freedom to find, get to everyone to get to know each other under the real, kind of, I was about to say performance pressures,
But
like
yeah,
in the real
totally.
culture that allows us to learn from each other, to grow, to make mistakes, and then see, in a couple of months' time, is this a fit? It reminds me
Yep.
of, the Zappos,
Absolutely.
famous Zappos experiences, right? Where Tony used to, I think it's well written in some of his materials, I think it was like he would pay people, like offer people to leave. Like if this wasn't
Mm,
the right business for you, hey, here's an incentive to go because culture
absolutely.
and fit and success was so important, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think we've
Yeah.
got a
Couple of
few
options,
ideas there. Yeah, some options
definitely.
there.
Well,
Awesome.
I hope that helps people. And as always, life's too short to waste time on bad work stories at work.
Yeah, well, we want to reduce that time that you're worrying about them. So again, like if you want to chat about what's going on in your recruitment piece and how to your onboarding or all of this stuff, and particularly how to like process and honor different intelligences that we have. So and one of the big ones is intuition. All right,
Mm,
so thanks,
may your
Em. See
gut
you all
be
next
with you.
time.
Thanks for listening to Bad Work Stories Made Good with Emma and Karina. We hope you enjoyed this episode and that the perspectives we'd shared stimulate your thinking and are a catalyst for your own reflections and actions. If you have a bad work story you would like to share, get in touch at help@badworkstoriesmadegood.com. And if you enjoyed or have some feedback, please leave a review. We appreciate it.